you grew up in the 90s or the early 2000s or even mid 2000s, you probably remember Nick Jr. Face. He was a character on Nick Jr. that would be the mascot from 1994 to 2003. He was a character that would come on between programs and even appeared on some of the Nick Jr. VHS tapes that came out from the 1990s and 2000s. Nick Jr. Face was a character that I grew up with from the 2000s probably until maybe like 2000, maybe like 16 is when I started kind of, getting over him, and now he's just basically a memory to me. He's always going to have a special place in my heart. But I want to talk to you guys about this character because this character really had some things with me. It's like some things that still sticks with me today, and even today this character kind of still I remember, and he still kind of creeps me out today. And now I know a lot of people have their own opinions on this guy, so I'm not gonna just bash everyone that likes him, but this is just strictly my own opinion of him. So Nick Jr. Face was, like I said, he was basically a character from 1994 to 2003, and he was replaced by Peter Opossum, I think his name was. The new mascot that replaced the Nick Jr. Face. Nick Jr. Face was voiced by Chris Phillips himself, and like I said, he would appear between programs, and he would announce who was coming on next, like Blue's Clues, Dora, Oswald, and much more. He would do funny jokes, and he would end his segments with a trumpet noise of, I think it was called Burr Burr Burr, which is, I think, one of my most memorable things about him. And so Nick Jr. Face was basically, like I said, the mascot back then. And back in the day, he was a cool character, but kind of creepy character. To some people, and that's what I want to talk about today, because I want to share basically my story on how Nick Jr. Face gave me nightmares, as y'all see by the title. Nick Jr. Face was a character, that I was kind of interested in, and I was like, who is this guy? When I first saw him, so I grew up in the early 2000s, so my first time seeing Nick Jr. Face was actually on the VHS tapes, the Nick Jr. VHS tapes. So that back in the day they had those little orange tapes with, obviously, that had the Nick Jr. Tapes. So basically, sorry guys, but yeah, so I grew up with the Nick Jr. VHS tapes, and I remember Nick Jr. Face actually being on those tapes. And he would come on between when the shows end, and he would kind of just have some segments of maybe, maybe him singing songs, maybe him telling jokes, maybe him maybe eating trying new foods or whatever it was. And then, they would end. And then how some of the Nick Jr. VHS tapes had the Just For Me theme with the Nick Jr. Kids opening and the Nick Jr. Kids closing from 2000 and 2004. Nick Jr. Face, I think, to me back in the day I found him kind of cool and kind of creepy at the same time. I think I found him creepy by just his looks and appearances. But I think what would get me the most is with the Nick Jr. Kids closing. I don't know if you've seen this video already, but I did a video on my, it's now called BGW Coaster Fans 01. And I'll put the link in the description for that video if you guys want. You can go check it out. I did a video a long time ago of why the Nick Jr. Kids closing gave people nightmares. And that video actually hit 7,000 views. Which is surprising because I know a lot of people were talking about it, and everybody was, doing reactions to it. So so this is kind of similar to that video, but now we're talking about the Nick Jr. Face character and why he gave me nightmares and why he probably gave some other people nightmares. So Nick Jr. Face was a character, that a lot of people liked. He was, just a funny kind of just your normal mascot, except he's just literally a face talking to you on the TV, But I think the reason it gave a lot of people nightmares was just his first appearance. It was his appearance. Face only had 2 eyes and a mouth. He didn't have no nose, but it would have some segments and promos where he would wear something as a nose, whether it was a faucet, whether it was a leaf, whether it was an apple, whether it was whatever. He would kind of just wear it as a nose and say like, oh, I have this for a nose, I have that for a nose, and Face was basically just your funny, average looking mascot character. And like I said, he would end his segments with which originally I think was going to be doo doo doo. But then Chris Phillips came up with this trumpet noise of burr burr burr. Which, not going to lie, it kind of does fit his character. But I think the promo that really got to me back in the day was part of the Nick Jr. Kids closing. It would start and begin with Nick Jr. Face saying, "See you later," on Nick Jr. But I think it was the way it started. So it would start with Face just like zoom out of the screen, and then he just literally zooms in on the screen. And he would just say maybe like in a deep voice of "See you later" on Nick Jr. But I think that really like unsettled me back then because of just the way that would start up. It would kind of just show him like bouncing on the screen, then saying that, which, kind of, it just really unsettled me, and I'm pretty sure it unsettled a lot of people too. Like, I kind of hate that it had to start with that, of him saying it like that. But as far as his appearance in other segments and promos, Face, I think, gave me more nightmares than really some cool moments. I actually remember most of my nightmares were him like coming out of the TV and him trying to like either kill me, eat me, whatever. Face would just come out of nowhere in my dreams, and he would just, this is the TV, right? He would literally just come out and just eat me. Like, he would just eat me. The reason I say eat me was because I think that's what it was. It was literally him just trying to like come out of the TV and eat me. He would maybe say things before that would happen. He would eat me, and then I would wake up. It was pretty terrifying as a kid. But now I don't have nightmares of him anymore, but back in the day when I was like a little kid and I used to, watch my Nick Jr. VHS tapes, I used to put them on, see Face, and then next moment I have a nightmare. Next moment at night I have a nightmare of Face, and to the point where it turns from nightmares to night terrors, where I'm literally just having Nick Jr. Face literally haunting my dreams and keeping me up at night. And you guys can relate to me. If you relate to me, comment down below. I've had Nick Jr. Face nightmares almost like nightly. Like, I would have a dream of him and it would keep me up, and then one thing I go back to sleep and I have another nightmare of him just doing haunting stuff in my dreams, kind of just being there in the dream, and then him just coming out of the TV screen and him just coming out and killing me. And and I knew it was a Nick Jr. Face nightmare because every time there was a TV, he would just appear on it. Maybe he wouldn't like eat me or kill me, but he would just appear in my dreams, and out of nowhere he would just do some weird stuff. He would just say some weird things, and next thing you know, I'm trying to run from him in my dreams, but all of a sudden I can't run from him. I'm like stuck or something in my dreams, and him just coming out and just trying to get me, kill me, eat me, whatever you want to call it. And that's where my dream would end. Him killing me, him eating me. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this if you had nightmares of him. Like, he was like, to me, he was like nightmare fuel, guys. He was creepy as hell to me. He was like, if I saw a TV that was off, I always had the imagination that he was just going to appear on the screen. He was going to, because he's a face. He's a literal face. He can literally just appear on the TV. If the TV was turned off or something, I would always want to turn the TV on. Guys, it was just my childhood. Like, every time I saw a TV that was turned off, I would want to turn it on just because I had the imagination of face appearing on the TV. Just like in my dreams. In my dreams, if there was a TV turned off, he would appear on there. He would appear on there all of a sudden, and what do you know? He comes out, eats me. That's how my nightmares were. I actually remember a nightmare I had of him where all of a sudden I was maybe talking to somebody, right? And then out of nowhere, there's a TV in the room, and all of a sudden, face just appears out of nowhere, and the screen and his background is green, and face kind of says, like in the Nick Jr. Face Rhymes promo, he would say, "Hi there, it's me, Face." And that's all the time we have for Nick Jr. That was the line he said in my dream. And then, out of nowhere, Face just literally came out of the TV, and he just went up to me, and there was like 4 faces of him on the TV. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 in a square form of faces. And they literally just came out of the TV, and they like went up to me and ate me. One of the 4 faces ate me in the dream, and that's when I woke up. I was so terrified. Like, I could not go back to sleep as a kid. I could not go back to sleep. Like, that's how scary Nick Jr. Face was to me. Like, I hated waking up in the dark as a kid. I hated just having the imagination of that guy. That guy was freaking terrifying to me back in the day. To the point where if I was watching a Nick Jr. VHS tape, I would hide behind a wall just to ignore Face and just to get away from him so that I would not have another nightmare of him. Like, or even if I just watched Nick Jr. Face that night, watched the VHS tape at night, I would maybe rewind or fast forward. No, not rewind. I would fast forward the tape so that I wouldn't have to see Nick Jr. Face. Like, that's how nervous I was with that guy. That guy gave me anxiety. That guy gave me depression just to sleep at night. Guys, it was freaky for me as a kid. If you can relate to this, comment down below and let me know your stories of him, because I've had some nightmares of this guy. This guy today, I still see him. Like, I watch him on YouTube sometimes, and today he doesn't really scare me like that. He just, what he is basically just like a, now every time I see Nick Jr. Face, he literally just puts a smile on my face because he's just such a memorable character that I remember from my childhood. He will always have a place in my heart. Every time I see his face now, he literally just puts a smile on my face because he's just a character I remember. Even though he scared me back then, it's just a character, that I will always remember and that will always just bring a smile to my childhood, But yeah, guys, it's like Face back in the day as a kid, he would literally come on and I would just be so terrified of him. And there's a lot of nightmares I can explain of him back in the day of what I've had, because I remember a lot of nightmares of him, but I'm not going to explain it in this video. But what I will say is that most of the nightmares were him like coming out of the TV and literally just like eating me, killing me, doing any of this, and then I will wake up at the end. Like, it was pretty terrifying, guys. I hope you guys can relate with me on this. Now, for the people that loved Face back in the day, I respect your opinion of him. And I agree. He's a pretty cool character. He's a character I think that most 2000 people and 90s people will remember. I think he's just a character, you know, that most people enjoyed and wish he could come back sometimes. Now, I think they did bring Face back on Nickelodeon, but I think he's just not as good as the original one, to be honest. He looks totally different now. So, yeah, it's just everybody will just remember Face, you know, who grew up with him back in the day. So, guys, why do I think Nick Jr. Face gave people nightmares? Well, I think the reason Nick Jr. Face gave people nightmares was his appearance, that his sometimes would do voices, you know, that are not his, like deep voices, high voices. And I think it really just is his appearance. He would change colors in the background. He would have creepy eyes, you know. And I think, in my opinion, he was just a creepy guy back then. One of those creepy characters that maybe to some people were nightmare fuel to them, you know? But for a lot of people that enjoyed Face, that's amazing. And I'm sure he has a special place in your heart. And I'm pretty sure he'll have a special place in my heart, too. Since I did grow up with him, he's a character I remember. But guys, I didn't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to explain my nightmares basically to you. Please write, comment, and subscribe, and keep in touch to the Zachary Hodge channel. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out, guys.
See you later.
Nick Jr.